Isn't it crazy the things we end up believing? For example, I'll give you an example, one of my favorite ones. Okay, one of my favorite ones is a phrase I've heard a lot, which is, you are free to speak what you want, but you're not free of the consequences from saying it. Like, what is that? What is that? Seriously? And these phrases and these narratives, they get repeated to us over and over, and we end up believing them for ourselves. And they actually have us to a point where we're actually saying these things to each other and believing them. Freedom of speech with consequences is not free speech, okay? It is not and should not be the responsibility of any powers that be to dictate and tell us what we can and can't believe, what we can and can't hear. Within reason. Obviously, there's a couple of exceptions, like inciting violence, for example. Obviously, nobody should be condoning inciting violence. But if you have like a crazy, wacky idea or a wild take on something, maybe it's incorrect, but it shouldn't be the responsibility of any powers that be or any peers of yours to allow or not allow you to hear or speak those ideas. But they got us in such a place where, like, the prisoners kind of guard themselves, okay? Like, if they repeat these things to us enough, we're going to start to believe them. And what's crazy to me is not only are we going to believe them, we are going to regurgitate these phrases back to each other in full belief of what we're saying. You're free to speak, but you're not free from the consequences of what you say. That's insane. Anytime that there's consequences for something that you say, it's not really free speech. More often than not, I see people getting shadow banned or all out banned, whatever the case may be, barred from certain institutions, for example, not because they're inciting violence, not because they're violent in nature, not because they're a harm to society, but because they have a different alternative take on things. Maybe it's correct, maybe it's not, maybe it's wild, maybe it's not. However, it is not subject to the norm. And these people are completely disbarred from society. At least that's what they want us to do with them. And I think that's insane. That is not freedom of speech. That is speech with consequences, which literally cannot meet that definition. And this is what I was saying the other day. Like, we have to take back some of our power, like politically, before it's entirely too late. And all speech has consequences, not even just the ones that they let you say. Let me know what you think. Stay safe.